Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Cuban Assassin Podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Richie Acevedo, also known as the Cuban Assassin. Last time on the Cuban Assassin Podcast, we talked about where I had quit professional wrestling and went to work at the same grocery store, Unite Super, that my mom worked at. And while I was working at Unite Super, I would end up becoming a very good best friends with a man named Tony Elmore. He would become my very good best friend, and we would do a lot of things and hang out and party and goof off a lot at work, but we always got our job done. But in the meantime, while I was making friends and adjusting to the new life, my dad was still wrestling in professional wrestling and in Grand Prix wrestling.
Fall with a 20-minute time limit. Introducing in the ring from Havana, Cuba, weighing 234 pounds, the eighth wonder of the world, the Cuban Assassin. And he is accompanied to the ring area by his partner, Jerry Morrow. His opponent, making his way to the ring area, hails from Shediac, New Brunswick, weighing 258 pounds. Here's Big Stephen Pettipaw. And your referee for this match is Bernie Richard.
Well, this should be an interesting match. It's singles competition time now for the Cuban Assassin as he prepares to grapple with the likes of Big Stephen Pettipaw.
Am I imagining things, Gary Maxwell? Big Stephen Pettipaw has lost a few pounds.
Big Stephen Pettipaw is in the best shape of his wrestling career. He's down about 10 or 15 pounds. He's been working out faithfully, religiously at Bedrock Gym in Moncton. And here he is ready to do battle with the Cuban Assassin. And I think it's only a matter of time before Big Stephen Pettipaw has a championship belt back around his waist.
Did you say Bedrock Gym?
I did indeed.
Oh, my good friends own that place. I must go down and see them, because I'm in such tremendous shape. They couldn't do nothing for me because I've got it all done and I'm all prepared for everything, So
I'm surprised you have any friends.
Oh, I got a lot of good friends. But let's get back to Stephen Pettipaw. If there was ever a guy that amazed me in his size and his drop kicks and everything he does in the ring, but I always find out there's something puzzling me about Big Stephen Pettipaw. He's never come up and won the big matches. Now, he's wrestling the Cuban Assassin. Now, if he goes on to beat the Cuban Assassin, then I could say to you, Gary Maxwell, he's beaten somebody, and maybe he should get a title shot. But right now, Stephen Pettipaw hasn't changed my feelings about him in the last 2 years that I've been here. He's still big. He's still good. He knows everything about professional wrestling. But then again, Mr. Gary Maxwell, I am the Maritime's biggest liar.
Well, let me say this about that. Right away, I want my feelings known on this match that I am very concerned about the presence of one Jerry Morrow at ringside. Jerry Morrow is the Cuban Assassin's tag team partner. But this is a singles match, and Jerry Morrow, to my knowledge, does not possess a manager's license to enable him to sit at that ringside location. Now, he should be removed from the premises so that this match can continue.
Well, Mr. Maxwell, let's get back to one thing. They are partners. They travel together. They eat together.
No
they
question.
Stay at the same
I'm not
hotel.
arguing that.
Okay,
You're not listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah, just
This
a minute.
is singles competition, and as such, Cuban Assassin is using Jerry Morrow in a managerial capacity for which he does not possess proper accreditation.
Okay, Mr. Whalen.
You can't argue with that. Those are the rules. Those are the rules of World Grand Prix Wrestling, and whether you like them or don't like them is inconsequential.
Well, I don't like the rules and regulations. I think if you got a partner, you're a tag team, and your partner, you got, after all, they are the tag team champions, so they got to be together. Here's Jerry Morrow sitting in the corner with the Cuban flag. Nobody respects. Hey, I'd be hot too, but I'd sit there as long as I've got the right to sit there. And Jerry Morrow, Champagne Jerry Morrow, that great athlete. All I can tell you is good luck to him, and I hope nobody removes him, because I like looking at him.
Here's Cuban Assassin going up and over with that knee dropping. Pettipaw, drop kick, and a headlock now on the Cuban Assassin. Big Stephen Pettipaw dominating here in the early stages of this match. But back to my comments on Morrow, all I'm saying is that if he's going to act as a manager in singles competition, get the proper licensing. Here's Cuban Assassin. Off the rope, Pettipaw decked, and I believe the Cuban Assassin reached into the Army fatigues and pulled something out of the pocket.
Mr. Maxwell, I don't know what match you are seeing, but hey...
Look, we can see it right there.
Just a minute.
It's right there on ATV television. The Cuban Assassin, zoom in on that.
I can't see nothing.
Look,
he's got a
you
piece of tape wrapped around his hand.
It looks like some sort of object. We can't be quite sure. Here he is using it on the throat of Big Stephen Pettipaw. Great work by our camera crew.
Well, the cameras are not working properly. They're picking up something that's happened in the audience.
Great work.
And Maxwell, I don't know what match you're watching, but for goodness sake, put your glasses on so you can watch the match with me, because you're watching a different match. All I'm looking at is a Cuban Assassin beating the heck out of Stephen Pettipaw.
Well, I'm going to let the great fans of the Maritimes be the judge. There you see the object again. No question about it.
That's his fist, and he's got his fist taped. That's what it is.
No question about it. The Cuban Assassin has some sort of object. I'm not going to argue with Bulldog Bob Brown. I'm going to let the fans decide for themselves whether they believe there's an object there or not, because it's the fans that really matter in this sport. Here's Big Stephen Pettipaw out on the cement floor. Jerry Morrow attacking from behind, using that Cuban flag.
From behind?
And Pettipaw
tripped over the cameraman is all I saw.
Pettipaw's down on the floor, obviously shaken up. Here comes Jerry Morrow at the chair. Jerry Morrow attacking Pettipaw with the chair. Honest to goodness, I don't know where this man gets his nerve. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. I stated it. Those were the reasons why I stated it. World Grand Prix Wrestling should launch an investigation immediately into Jerry Morrow's presence at ringside. As far as this match is concerned, he has no business being there, and that just proves it.
All I can see is Cuban Assassin beating the heck out of Stephen Pettipaw. I didn't see it, no interference. There's two guys in the ring, along with the third man in the ring, Bernie Richard, the worst referee in professional wrestling. I tell you, I just don't see how Stephen Pettipaw can beat the Cuban Assassin.
Once again, Cuban Assassin going to the trunks for that object and using it on the small of the back on Big Stephen Pettipaw. Cuban giving the count, 1, 2, and Pettipaw getting a foot out on the ropes.
There's your good old Canadian do-gooder putting his foot on the ropes. Yeah, he's a great athlete, isn't he?
Here's Cuban with a bear hug. He's got the bear hug in on Pettipaw. Jerry Morrow watching the action. As I mentioned, he has no business being there. Pettipaw trying to withstand the pressure of the bear hug from the Cuban Assassin.
Well, it's all over. I can't see Pettipaw coming out of this.
There's Pettipaw. Off the rope. Clothesline. Pettipaw sending the Cuban flying to the canvas. Here's Pettipaw whipping Cuban off the ropes. Drop kick. Pettipaw catching the Cuban square in the face. Pettipaw once again. Here's Cuban. And down he goes again. Here's a pin. 1, 2. Morrow in to interfere.
I like this. I like what I see now. Here comes Stephen Casey. He's got no business being in the ring. I tell you, this match got out of hand because of Bernie Richard. Let me tell you something about that Casey. He's nothing but a cheap crook and a cheap shot that he took at the Cuban Commandos.
Here's Cuban Assassin getting worked over. Jerry Morrow had no business being in there, and Jerry Morrow is paying dearly now for his misdeeds.
Here's 2-on-1 again.
Here comes Steve Casey off the ropes. Look at this.
Wow, isn't that nice now? Hey, listen, two guys.
Steve Casey and Stephen Pettipaw, clean house. And Pettipaw gets the match by virtue of disqualification.
Well, let's get something quick short here. They disqualified the Cuban commanders. But what about Stephen Casey? Stephen Casey now gets away with the whole charade. He comes in the ring, he hits the guys with drop kicks, he clotheslines them from the top rope, and nothing is even said. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why I'm back. I'm back to clean house, and we'll be right back after this important message I'm discussing. Jerry Maxwell.
Now, while Dad was wrestling, I was still working Unite Super at the grocery store and hanging out with my good friends Tony Elmore and David Thompson, having a good time. But one day when I was working Unite Super, there was a guy that came in and he said, "I know who your dad is. I used to work with him at Saturday Night Wrestling. It was none other than Shirley Love." And Shirley Love was the host of WYTV4 Saturday Night Wrestling. Here's a short interview about Shirley Love for those who don't know who he is.
One of the big shows that came out of this creative stage was Saturday Night Wrestling. This show, hosted by Shirley, lasted almost 2.5 decades. That's very good for an unsyndicated wrestling program.
Wrestling. That was the big one. That's the one that everybody enjoyed. That was everyone's Saturday Night Opera. And it gave audience participation. At Channel 4, in the early years of it, it was before a tape machine came along. It was all live. Everything was live, and this was held in the studios. And we would give away the tickets. You could write in wherever you lived in the Tri-County area, and you get up to 6 free tickets. It was on a first-come, first-served basis. Family would come over. They could watch the wrestling matches for free in the studios. And it got to be a very, very popular show.
WOAY had to play an announcement before each Saturday Night Wrestling broadcast stating that the show was prearranged. Shirley says that it kept them from having to pay the West Virginia Athletic Panel's fee for broadcasting a sports program. But this didn't keep the fans from getting very...
But now the audience was very much for real. There's no fake about the audience. And this made it a lot of fun because in the early years of the live wrestling, and I'm saying live, when you was talking to someone in the audience who had just got inflamed by one of the bad guys roughing up the eyes of one of the good guys, you never knew what they was going to say. You had to be quick on the trigger of disconnecting that microphone because they just came up with some pretty foul language at times. They'd forget where they were, and a lot of times it got on the air. I mean, it was funny, and it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny for an announcer. It was funny for the audience.
Shirley came onto the show as its color man after the first 2 weeks and stayed for its entire duration. One has to wonder, why?
Well, in this case, no one else wanted to do it. It was about 1954, and at that time, Bob Kent, who was manager of the Fayetteville Memorial Auditorium, they held wrestling matches in the auditorium, and Bob Kent, he did it a couple of weeks, and he said, "Look, man, I can't do this." So the boss said, "Shirley, you'll do Saturday Night Wrestling." Well, I was like you. I was almost an intern to some of the youngsters you have here at Votech. I'd do anything to even though I didn't know I couldn't do it. So I developed my own style. I didn't know arm lock from a flying mare to a flying veal or a Boston crab or whatever all his holds were, but made them up as I went along, and it worked pretty good. In fact, you have some of the footage in the early years of wrestling, and we had everyone there from Argentine Rocca to Gorgeous George.
Now, Shirley Love and I will remain to be very good friends to his dying day. And I was still working Unite Super with my mom, Yvonne Dempsey, and there was another guy that came into Unite Super while I was working, and he said, "Hey, I know who your dad is. I used to wrestle with him at Saturday Night Wrestling. That man is Louis Torres, better known as Chief Black Eagle." And here's a little bit of a news clip of WYTV4 did on Chief Black Eagle for those who don't know who he is.
Louis Torres has a different spin on life these days. 33 years ago, he was riding a wave of popularity known to Saturday Night wrestlers as Chief Black Eagle. At 25 years old, he was just stepping into the ring. By the time he made it to WOAY, he was the chief with all the power. Wow. Now, many years later, he can still pump it out. but no longer in a ring. Those days have become fond memories.
Oh yeah, when people making me mad, I do the war dance, I go crazy, and the people, woo, up in the air. I start dancing, I threw the guy to the rope and give him a shot. I flash the guy, 1, 2, 3.
With a slip of the headdress, more memories come back. Although this was a happy time for the chief, this ring will be the only one he'll be getting his hands on. He's passing down his tribal feathers to a little Indian, his grandson.
And I would be good friends with Chief Black Eagle until his dying day as well. But both Chief Black Eagle and also Shirley Love coming in my life is another synchronicity to WOAY TV4. So keep watching the series, you'll see more of that coming in my life. And at the time, Dad was still wrestling, and this time he would go to Calgary Stampede Wrestling and down to the World Wrestling Council of Puerto Rico. Here's a match with Dad in Puerto Rico.
El Super Médico 1. Y con un peso de 240 libras de un lugar desconocido, el Mercenario 1. Apoderado el profe, árbitro, el gran vikingo.
Bueno, el supermédico listo para entrar en acción frente al mercenario número 1. Ahí está despojándose de su camisa, se la entrega en su esquina al profe. Y vamos a ver un encuentro entre dos rivales, entre los cuales hay mucha riña. Al centro del cuadrilátero el supermédico frente al mercenario número 1. Ahí salen hasta una de las esquinas, el supermédico tratando de imponerse. Aquí al principio del encuentro, el mercenario número 1, hombre de mucha experiencia, hay que cuidarse de él en todo momento.
El mercenario número 1 muy atento al público. Mientras tanto, muy atento al mercenario número 1, el supermédico. Lo llevó el mercenario hacia la cuerda. Atacó al supermédico y esto lo molestó y ripostó con 2 golpes al mercenario. El supermédico número 1, uno de los luchadores que mejores domina las cuerdas. Golpeando fuertemente al mercenario número 1. Se mueve hacia atrás el mercenario y el apoderado de el profe, protestó porque le había dado y que con el puño. Rápido, con un candado a la cabeza, el supermédico sobre el mercenario número 1. Saque de cuerdas, tacle fuerte que lanzó el mercenario, patada voladora. Lo toma el mercenario y contralona fuerte. Lo sintió el mercenario ese golpe en una contralona recetada por el supermédico número 1. Recetada y aplicada por el supermédico número 1 esa contralona. Redujo la velocidad del mercenario número 1. Nuevamente entrando a medir fuerzas y rápido el supermédico aplicándole candado a la cabeza del mercenario número 1. Jalándolo por la máscara al mercenario, saque de cuerdas y lazo que lanza al supermédico. Se ve más lento ahora al mercenario número 1, luego de tantos golpes ha recibido codazo invertido fuerte a la nuca del supermédico. Golpe, gargantilla por el mercenario número 1.
Bueno, y atacando bien el mercenario número 1 al supermédico, el profe de afuera aplaudiéndole todos los movimientos. Ahí volvió a meter su pulgar al cuello. El supermédico en dificultades cuando han transcurrido ya 3 minutos con 45 segundos de este encuentro contra una de las esquinas, el supermédico y el mercenario, olfateando la victoria, tratando de castigar a su rival.
Había conectado un buen pulgarazo al cuello del supermédico, el mercenario. Ahora están dividiendo golpes ambos luchadores. Con golpe fuerte el supermédico y cerró el puño. Fue sorprendido ahora por el mercenario número 1 mientras le llamaba la atención al vikingo. Tomándolo por la truza el mercenario. Saque de cuerdas y recibe patadas por el supermédico. Golpes cortos. Y golpe que lanza la lona al mercenario por el supermédico. Cabezazo fuerte. Continúa recibiendo castigo el mercenario, saque de cuerdas y ahora es el mercenario que sorprendió al supermédico. El conteo del árbitro, 1, 2, solamente 2. Y lanzó al mercenario. Subiendo al cuadrilátero, el apoderado, el profe. Ahí golpeó con algún objeto el mercenario, el supermédico. El conteo, 1, 2, 3 fanáticos. Y el árbitro, el vikingo, declara vencedor al mercenario número 1. Mientras tanto, este está tratando de quitar la máscara del supermédico número 1. Está tratando de quitar la máscara mientras se va acercando al cuadrilátero el supermédico número 3, que golpea fuerte al mercenario. Ahí está, golpeando al mercenario número 1, al supermédico número 3. Mientras tanto, está tratando de reponerse ese golpe el supermédico número 1, catapulta por el supermédico número 3, buscando altura, se coloca en la tercera cuerda, pero acaba de entrar Ron Rambo Star. Fanáticos ahora está atacando a Ron Rambo Star, el supermédico número 3, fue atacado por la espalda por el mercenario y se acerca con una silla peligrosamente. Ron Rambo Star está aguantando el mercenario número 1 al supermédico número 3, se levanta la silla que es tomada por el supermédico. Fanáticos, y han salido ambos corriendo como galgos del cuadrilátero. Por lo tanto, quedaron dentro del cuadrilátero el supermédico 1 y el supermédico número 3. Muy enojado el supermédico número 1. Y mientras tanto, fanáticos, el árbitro, el vikingo, va saliendo del cuadrilátero y nosotros retornamos en breve.
Amigos, con nosotros los supermédicos, todos vimos lo que sucedió sobre el cuadrilátero cuando se enfrentaba el supermédico número 1 al mercenario número 1. Si no llega a ser por la intervención de su hijo, quien entró al cuadrilátero cuando le pegaron con un objeto contundente a su padre y estaban tratando de humillarlo, quitándole la máscara, sabe Dios qué hubiera pasado. ¿Cómo te sientes luego de este encuentro?
Bueno, lo que le hicieron a mi padre, eso no tiene nombre. Pero mañana en Aguadilla nos va a enfrentar al mercenario. Usted sabe la guerra que hay, y yo se lo juro, de aquí lo vamos a sacar a como de lugar. Así que esperamos que esa gente bonita de Aguadilla se den cita mañana en Aguadilla, porque pensamos darle una tremenda paliza y a descobrarnos esto que nos hicieron. Así que, mercenarios, vayan bien preparados, porque nosotros pensamos destruirlos mañana en Aguadilla.
No se lo pierdan, amigos, tremendo encuentro en Aguadilla. Sigan disfrutando de la mejor lucha libre del mundo. Bien, amigos, con nosotros los mercenarios número 1. Todos vieron lo que sucedió sobre el cuadrilátero. Yo no voy a abundar mucho sobre eso. Está caliente esta riña y mañana en Aguadilla se van a ver las caras sus luchadores frente a los supermédicos.
Just ask Rambo. Rambo, tell him what you feel about those mediocre.
Well, Profi, you know you've had us on a real strenuous training routine. We've been out on the beaches. We're running. We're practicing the DDTs. We're practicing the double DDTs. We've even got something in the secret for you, gentlemen. And I'm going to tell you right now, if there's anything left when you get to Aguadilla, it belongs to me. It belongs to my amigo. And we're going to defeat you right here in Aguadilla.
Bueno, amigos, ya ustedes escucharon lo que dice el profe. Rambo Ronstal dice que está entrenando duro, está corriendo en la playa. Además de eso, la DDT, una llave muy peligrosa, la han practicado tanto Ronstal como con su compañero el mercenario de forma doble, y que ellos están listos para derrotarlos en Aguadilla.
La asquerosa ciudad de Aguadilla va a ver el terminar de los supermédicos.
No estamos hablando solamente de los campeonatos. Vamos por ustedes, supermédicos. Vamos por sus cabezas. Esta vez vimos cómo le quitamos, incluso por poco le quitamos las máscaras. Pues vamos por ustedes, imbéciles. No les queda nada cuando terminen con ustedes, porque no va a quedar nada de los super imbéciles que son llamados médicos.
Bueno, amigos, está rojo vivo esta riña. No se lo pierdan mañana en la cancha bajo techo de Aguadilla. Este sensacional encuentro, los mercenarios frente a los supermédicos.
Son basura. El hombre de y los campeonatos son de nosotros.
Now, I didn't stay working long for Unite Super. Eventually, I would end up quitting and getting several different jobs. But then I realized that my Uncle Earl was in the United States Army. He had served, as well as my Uncle Cliff Henney. He also served in the United States Army. And so did my stepdad, Donald J. Dempsey. He also served in the United States Army. He was an MP. So I joined the United States Marine Corps. And It didn't take too long for me to be in the United States Marine Corps. I get into a fight, then I get kicked out of the United States Marine Corps. And when I got home and turned on WYTV4 TV, there's a new wrestling program on, none other than Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Next time on the Cuban Assassin Podcast, we'll talk about me meeting Blazing Bobby Blaze and getting back into professional wrestling. The Cuban Assassin Podcast is written, produced, edited, and directed by me, Richie A. Savito, at Mountain Man Productions. Special thanks goes to Ben Hilton for the opening and closing demographics of today's podcast. Special thanks goes to the late Shirley Love and the Love family, along with Renee Dupree and the Gauguin family, and to Capital Sports, Inc., as well as World Wrestling Council Puerto Rico for all the film footage used in today's podcast. Also, special thanks goes to WYTV4 for the news special used on today's podcast, and to my late mother, Yvonne Dempsey, for all the photographs used in today's podcast. You can reach me at mountainmanproductions@outlook.com. That's capital N for Mountain, capital N for Man, and capital P for Productions @outlook.com, or you can leave a comment. We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast of the Cuban Assassin Podcast, and we hope to see you next time right here on the Cuban Assassin Podcast.